Can we have the kids come, please? I used to lead worship long before I ever went into ministry. But back then, I knew the words and everything by heart. It was easier. How are you guys this morning? Pretty good? Now I want you to look straight at me, and I want you to look out there at all, okay? I don't want you looking at anybody, just look right at me. And this is simply yes or no question. Do you know who John Ream is? Okay, you get to be, you said yes, so stand up, turn around. Look straight at me the whole time now. What color shirt's John wearing? But you said you know him?
I do.
So you didn't pay attention to him? Did she ignore you, John?
My hand.
Is your heart broken?
Yes.
Since you don't know what colors, we'll give you some glasses so you can look. You can push them on yourself. Okay, now turn around, take a look. Tell us what color shirt John's wearing. What color? Because you had to go like that? Green, right. Right. Look straight at me. You can sit down. Turn around. What color top's Mandy wearing this morning? Did you ignore her?
I was looking at her, but I forgot what top.
You looked at her and ignored her at the same time. Is your heart broken? Her heart's broken. You don't know what color top she's wearing. 21. Those glasses always help you to see better. See what kind of color top she's wearing?
I can see a flashing light.
I don't know where you're seeing the flashing light. That's over there somewhere. I think that's a reflection on Marcia's necklace. She has a necklace. See, you ignored Marcia too. What color top she wearing? Mandy.
Oh, she's wearing red.
Ready? There you go. You want to try it? Turn around here. Face me. Do you know who Sandy Bittner is? You do? What color top she wearing?
I don't know.
Put those on. Take a good look. Turn around and look at Sandy. Wave your hand, Sandy, so she can look at you in the crowd. You see her? What color is she wearing? Now wait a minute. What color is she wearing?
Purple and white.
That's right. Your last one. One up here. Turn around. You know how this is working, right? You memorize what everybody's wearing while everybody else is going, right? Do you have an annual you pick? How about Joy's been standing in front of you all morning. What color is she wearing?
I don't know.
Joy, he ignored you through all the time you're up here talking. She was standing right there the whole time. Did you look at her at all?
Yes.
Well, so what color is she wearing?
Brown.
Oh, you're close. You're close. We'll let you have that one. You can take a look and see. Okay, turn back around here. Oh, wait, no, no, no. You gotta go again. Now, who took up the offering? Your dad. Right? Somebody helped him. Who else? Mike. Mike helped him. What color shirt's Mike wearing?
Gray.
All right. You did well. You did well. Do you want to look through the glasses just for the experience? What color shirt you got wearing?
Brown.
Turn around and look. Take a look. Can you see him? Why not? You're wearing glasses. It's not quite brown, is it? You did well, though. Now, you know, the reason why I did this is because a lot of times we don't see people exactly right. We just kind of meet them and we just miss them, or we just kind of assume things about people because there's something that keeps us from being able to see who they really are. But God sees you down inside your heart and your life so well that He knows that you're somebody He wants to love. We look at people, we don't always know who they are, and so we don't know, well, I don't know whether I like them or not, but God looks at you and He says, I love you. Because He can see clear into your heart. He says, there's somebody that I love. So let's pray that God helps us see other people the same way that He sees us. Lord, open our eyes. Lord, that we might see others. And Lord, that your power and your Spirit might be upon us. In Jesus' name. Have any of you, I'm sure all of you have, been driving sometime at night and it gets extremely foggy? So foggy that you have trouble seeing much more than 2 or 3 feet past the front of the car. Everybody experienced that? And you've been straining to see that little white line on the edge of the road. I remember one time where it was snowing so bad, and it was kind of like, you couldn't see, and I had one person hanging out the passenger side window watching the bank, while I was watching the bank on my side, because you couldn't see in the front of the car. You guys have been there? And have you ever been driving where it's so foggy like that, and you're trying to see that white line on the edge of the road, and then you realize, there is no white line on the edge of the road. And how many of you are like Mike and myself? They're driving too fast when it's foggy like that anyway. You're saying, no, you're the one that drives too fast. Like, boy, she suddenly shut down the car. And she, yeah, and then something jumps out, or suddenly a car taillights appear right in front, and it scares you to death. It's like, oh man, you know, because you can't see. Or have you ever been someplace where you're trying to watch, maybe it's church, maybe it's a concert, maybe it's a ball game, and there's always somebody in front of you that keeps blocking your view? Ever had that happen? I don't remember where it was at. I do remember the one incident because it started to irritate me after a while. It was a woman wearing a hat. And it was an indoor thing, so that was part of why it irritated me. But the hat was a big hat, and it was like, you couldn't see around the hat. And Marshall, all this thing, he had tons of hats out last night, didn't you? The Easter bunnies. And I've often thought, how annoying Easter Sundays must have been for all the people trying to see around all these ladies with these big fancy hats. You know, this one time I remember the woman was sitting there, and I could kind of get in an awkward position where it wasn't comfortable, but I could see what was going on. But she was fidgety. So she kept throwing her head this way. Then she blocked your view with the hat. So then you're trying to fidget and get over here. And it was crowded, so you're pushing the people beside you trying to see. And the hat was just always on the way. Or have you ever scratched your eye enough that it hurt and you had trouble keeping it open? I remember one time it was the Sunday before deer season opened. And I was out in the woods, cleaning off shooting lanes and stuff, the place I was planning to start a stand that day. And as I was pushing this one step, a big limb up in the tree came down, hit me right in the eye. And scratched it up really good. I was on my knees in pain for a while. And made my way out of the woods. By the time I got out of the woods, it was dark. Went to the house and laid in pain all night from that eye. Couldn't really sleep because when you closed it, it hurt. When it was open, it would hurt. Everything was blurry. But, I'm not going to miss the first day of deer season. So I went out in the woods. I had a bandana and I tied it around my eye. So anybody saw me, I looked like half pirate, half cowboy, a bandana. But I was still, the eye was so painful, I couldn't really pay attention and see what was going on. So I only hunted part of the day. There's a lot of different things that block our vision. And I've really been wrestling, thinking anyway, this past couple of weeks or more, and then the continuing ed conference I was at this week made me think about it even more. About how do we really see people, and how we don't see them clearly. And I'd really like to be able to see. Really like to be able to see. Sometimes I don't see people because the culture we live in makes everything kind of foggy. It's hard to pick out and discern properly through all the fog of everything, of all the stuff the media throws at you, and all the opinions, and what's politically correct, and what's right, and what's wrong, and what one person thinks and versus. It's really hard to see and perceive people clearly in the midst of all the fog of everything that's out there about different groups and different people and different opinions and attitudes. Then there's times I have trouble seeing clearly because of things that block my own vision like I had. Some of those things are my own prejudices, my own attitudes, my own presuppositions about people. I don't like the family they come from. I don't like the place they live. I don't like the way they dress. I don't like the sports team they root for. Whatever. I had a seminary professor that you weren't allowed to put your name on your test. When you took a test, the only thing you were allowed to put on the paper was your social security number. Because he discovered that he had attitudes and prejudices against people. And he found that if you were taking a test and you were a woman, you weren't going to get as good grades as the guys would. He just had he said he wasn't conscious that he was doing it, but he found he graded them harder. And if he found that you were a woman from the South, you weren't supposed to get good grades at all. And he found out and discovered that that's what he was doing. So he would make you only put your social, so he wouldn't know whose test he was grading, so he would eliminate that prejudice. He was honest enough. He said, I want to make sure that I'm fair in how I do this. Now, sometimes we judge people based on our own prejudice, our own attitudes, our own opinions about maybe their last family name, who their brother, sister, mother, father were, what kind of house they live in, what kind of car they drive, what kind of job they do have, what kind of job they don't have. All these different things we get prejudiced about. What color skin they are, what faith they are. And then there's times that I judge people, I don't see and perceive them because of the pain. They've hurt me somehow in the past. Or they remind me of somebody who's hurt me in the past. Or, they're related to somebody that's hurt me in the past. Or for whatever reason, you just don't really want to see them for who they are. We make judgments based on all those kind of things. And then here we are 2 weeks past Easter, we still have, the rock altar built and the cross is still up. And we're thinking about Jesus. And I think about him, what would compel him to want to die for me or die for some of those people? What would compel him to want to do that? And I've never served in the military. And how many of you have served? 3 or 4 of you? I've never served in the military, but you know, we appreciate the sacrifice that our military makes on our behalf. But I also, every person I know in the military, even though they knew they were putting themselves in the potential for jeopardy, all kind of figured that they were coming home. Isn't that right? John? You know, you're called to service where it may cost you your life, but your attitude and your opinion is, if I can get home, I'm coming home. Jesus left heaven saying, I'm not going to make it. But I'll go. This is going to cost me my life. I'm going to die down there. And he even told his disciples way in advance, when we go here, this is what's going to happen to me. But he came knowing that. Because he could see. He could see what you were. John chapter 4. You see where Jesus has vision that the rest of us don't have. That's where you find the story of the woman at the well. Jesus and the disciples are moving, they're passing through Samaria, and they stop about noontime at this well. Jesus sits down, the disciples go in. Now Samaria, that's the place, the Samaritans lived there, and what they were half-breeds. They were people that had intermarried with people from other faiths when the Jews were carried away into captivity. So they were considered outcasts, half-breeds by the Jews. The Jews just kind of looked at them like scum. They're kind of like a very racial, ethnic division and disgust there. It was so bad that even the Jews, if they at all possibly could, they wouldn't even walk through Samaria. Ever heard of bad sections of towns? Oh, don't go there. Samaria was that to them. Let's just say if you were trying to get to Waynesburg, Pennsylvania, and you didn't want to go through Fayette County, because that's Samaria, they would go all the way up through Pittsburgh and circle around and come back down. Or they'd go down to Friendsville, Maryland, and down through West Virginia and circle, because Fayette County, you don't want to be there. That was the way they were with Samaria. And here's Jesus and his disciples. They're in the midst of Samaria, sitting down at the well, and this woman comes to get water. And you know, she was a tramp. Part of why we know she was a tramp, she was there at noon. Everybody else that was reputable would come early in the morning or right in the evening time. But people that were classified as outcasts, not socially acceptable, they went at noon. And we find as we read the story more that she was part of that, she'd been with all kinds of different men. So she was kind of the town tramp in many ways. And Jesus talks with her. Asked her for a drink, where some of them would say, I wouldn't want a drink for her. Who knows what you might catch? And she said, why are you asking me for a drink? And he said, if you knew who asked you, you'd ask him, because he'd give you rivers of living water, fountain of milk, that you'd never be thirsty from again. As they talk, she runs back into the town, and she tells people, I just met a man that knew me the way no one else has ever known me. She brought the town people out to meet Jesus. They were so impressed, they said, Jesus, would you stay? And he stayed with them for 2 or 3 days in Samaria, talking with these people, transformed the town as they all started to eagerly hear what he had to share. And it's because Jesus could see. The woman came to the well. He didn't prejudge her. He just saw deep into her heart and said, there's a person that needs Jesus. Someone who's, what she seemed like a tramp. What she was thirsting for something real, something satisfying. Jesus saw that. Jesus touched her life. Well then, we have another episode in John chapter 8. Woman caught in adultery. The Pharisees and scribes bring her before Jesus, throw her down at his feet, and say, you know, this woman was caught in adultery, and the law says that, you know, she should be stoned. What do you say? We don't know what Jesus wrote, but he knelt down and he started writing in the ground. Some people speculate that he was writing the names of everybody else there that had been with somebody, or that he was writing their own personal sins, or maybe he was, quote, writing some other parts of the law. I don't know. But Jesus did look at them and say, let those of you without sin cast the first stone. They dropped their stones on the boy. Then Jesus doesn't judge the woman. He looks at her and says, where are those who accuse you? Where are those who condemn you? And she says, there aren't any. Jesus says something I wonder if we could say, that I don't condemn you either. He goes on to say, now go and sin no more. See, Jesus looks at this woman and she seems like someone worthy of judgment, caught in adultery. What she was somebody that was hurting and longing for someone to care about her and love her. And Jesus said, you have my love. Now just go and sin no more. Because of that, she's recorded in the scriptures. Now Luke chapter 19, I believe it's chapter 19, this story of Zacchaeus. We all know, we've probably learned the song, most of you. You know, Zacchaeus was a wee little man. You know that story. He climbed up in a sycamore tree, because the Lord, you want to see. Zacchaeus was a tax collector. Scum of the earth. And that bad. See, tax collectors, what they would do, Zacchaeus being a Jewish person, and he contracted with Rome to collect the taxes. So say the taxes in this region where he served, the taxes were $2,000. He said, Rome, I'll pay you the $2,000 for the right and the privilege to collect taxes here. And so then he got to be the tax collector, and so then he would come and he'd say, Mike, your taxes are $500. John, your taxes are $500. He'd go around 500, 500, 500, 200, 500. He might collect $8,000 in taxes for the $2,000 taxes that were due. And he'd keep the extra. Now, he's a Jewish person collecting taxes for an oppressive country named Rome that the Jews hated, and the taxes were used to pay for soldiers to come in and oppress the people even more, and to control and contain and squelch any kind of upheaval. And so tax collectors were viewed as traitors and treasonous, because they were helping the other people, the Romans. They were also extortionists and thieves. So they were considered the scum of the earth. And Zacchaeus, he hears about Jesus, and he's a short man, and he's got some lady with a hat in front of him, so he can't see. So he climbs a tree. And Jesus looks at him and says, Zacchaeus, come down, come to your house. And as he eats dinner with Zacchaeus, that everybody else would have prejudged as the scum of the earth, Zacchaeus' heart has changed, and he says, you know, Lord, said anybody I've wronged, I'm going to make it right. Anybody I've robbed, I'm going to pay back 4 times fourfold of what I've taken from them. And Jesus says, salvation has come this day to this house. Because Jesus didn't view Zacchaeus as what he seemed to be, the scum of the earth tax collector. He knew what he was, someone longing for acceptance. So he threw it, whether he got acceptance from Rome or whether he could just get enough money that he could buy the kinds of things he wanted. But you know, he transformed Zacchaeus' life, and as a result, everybody got a tax break. You got a tax refund, and Zacchaeus didn't charge exorbitant taxes after that anymore. Jesus could see the change in the heart. Now, the thing is, Jesus knows everything about you. He knows what you seem to be to everybody else. He knows what you are, he knows what you aren't. And he still came to die for you. Because he sees in you such great potential to be a servant. We're about to receive communion. And as we receive communion, remember that this is what compelled Jesus to die for you. Because he could see in you so much that he wanted to offer you. And he sees in you so much to offer.
Body of Christ, broken for you. The blood of Christ poured out for you. I invite you all to come and receive the body and blood of Christ. Heavenly Father, Lord, may we see. May we see deep into the hearts of people and see the potential you have created in Jesus' name.